Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Perceptive podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. And apparently, having lots of weird issues tonight. We'll see if things hold up, but of course, I am Josh Bycer from Game Wisdom. And my guest tonight does marketing and works at the studio Chainawesome Games. And he's going to talk a little bit about what he's learned, as well as tips and tricks for developers about how to do indie game marketing right. So, please welcome to the cast, Laurent. How are you doing?
I'm doing super well. Thanks for having me tonight.
It is great to have you on. We've been playing a Discord tag, a Shark set, for like the better part of like 6, 7 months. So it's great to finally
Yeah.
get you on.
Yeah, I'm super happy. I love talking about games marketing. It's a very it's a passion of mine. So I'm happy to have a chat tonight.
And we just did a chat with a local developer who does a lot of stuff with trailers and editing them and doing marketing along those lines. So this is a great kind of companion piece for this week for the audience.
Oh yeah, I guess making the person making trailer was probably very interesting because there's a lot to it. It's complicated.
Ooh, definitely, for sure. So, with that said, we certainly have a lot to talk about. Thank you, Shark. I remember the Derek. I didn't remember his last name. But it is great to have you on. We certainly have a lot to discuss. And for the people watching us live right now, if you do have any questions for Laurent, please get them in. We have plenty of time, at least for right now, as I'm saying this. So, since this is your first time on the cast, could you talk a little bit about who you are and what your background is?
Yeah, absolutely. So who am I? I'm a dad of three young kids. That's the biggest part of my life. I've studied communications at the University of Laval in Quebec. I've always had a passion for games. I think it's the story of pretty much anyone ended up working in games. Never thought I'd be working in that field because there was no gaming industry in Quebec when I started studying marketing and communications. But it happened to be growing when I got out of school in 2012. So I started working for an indie studio that's currently dead, RIP Genia, in 2012. And then I started working for Frema Studio, also based in Quebec City. That's a much bigger studio, mostly doing work for hire and licensing work. But they also add this small division dedicated to their own intellectual properties. So I work on that team to try and market their game.
Mm-hmm.
Really, my first steps really in marketing were done there. And then in 2016, early 2016, I joined Chainawesome Games, um, who at that time was only a studio of the three co-founders. So I was kind of the employee number one, and they hired me to kind of take care of everything that was not making the games. Because they didn't like that stuff. So before I joined, they were doing their own community management, marketing, and business development, but they really wanted to give that out to someone else. So I've been doing that since 2016. So it's been 5 years already, a bit more than that.
Which in this industry, that's like 40 years.
Yeah, kind of. I'm really, really attached to Chain's Awesome Games. It's a great team. Really happy to be part of that studio.
hmm Yep, and it's interesting to talk about like how much things have changed. I think that takes me to the first question that I have for you. Like we on like this channel and with a lot of my work, we've certainly spent time talking about how much the market and how much game dev has changed over the last like 5 to 7 years. But we really have a chance to talk about things from like a marketing standpoint.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh,
for you, I guess my question is like how has things changed for marketing video games over like the last like 5 to 7 years?
timeline because
Hmm.
if you go way back, a lot of change. Like 5 years, let's take a 5 year window as an example. A lot of things have changed, even if it's just 5 years. And it's the constant. It's still going on, and it's the biggest challenge of marketing. There's just so many games coming out. And 5 years has made a huge difference. 5 years ago, I just I just left Freema Studio. We released earlier that year a game called Chariot. That was a co-op game where you were working together to bring a chariot to the end of a level. And I did a lot of marketing for that. And the launch was pretty smooth. We got press from a lot of outlets with very minimal PR. We like it was kind of lot easier at that point. There weren't so many games. For one, there weren't so
Hmm.
many games coming out every day, even on consoles. Switch wasn't part of the areas at that moment. It was the Wii U. So like Nintendo for indies was kind of out of the game. So even less games coming out, because there's less platform. And yeah, things went pretty smoothly. But it changed a lot in 5 years. Just the sheer amount of games coming out. But on one other thing that I saw change a lot was PR in general, or I would say the interest you get from big outlets. There was a time like I would say not an indie golden age, because a lot of people are saying that it happened way before that, where any indie game that was kind of the trend. Like indie games, wow, this is the new thing. Like anyone can make games, and we're gonna cover those so much. That is done. Like people are gonna have gonna have a hard time just to get one piece out of a press outlet, because I think at some point maybe the consumers got kind of tired of so many indie games being announced and releasing. So I guess it generates less clicks. So they're focusing more their editorial on games that are already popular and already super trendy. That's something that I've observed. Um, and yeah, Steam is still a great platform. Has improved a lot in 5 years, though. That I think they're doing better. Uh, yeah, if
Hmm.
in general terms, that would be the things that I've changed in 5 years. It's getting harder,
Yep.
and to
And
simplify, it's getting harder.
yep, and it's something that we've spoken about a lot on these discussions and a lot of my videos and with other developers. That, like as you said, like 5, 6 years ago, you get your game on Steam, you know, pretty much like half or 3 quarters of the battle is done for you in terms of getting people to play your game.
I would
And
go back further for that. Maybe
yeah,
not 6 years, 10 years. Give
yeah,
give me 10 years, but and yeah, just getting your game through green light at the time.
mm-hmm,
It was kind of a process of filtering that's done now. I wish green light would come back. Um, and yeah, we got 10 years ago releasing a game on Steam. It gives you a really you're in a good spot.
yeah, and I think what you said about kind of like the audience expectations is a very big point about this. Like, I play indie games pretty much like day in and day out, with like rare exception these days. And I see 30 to 50 games being released weekly. I mean, I cover, I have a show or I have a video on Wednesdays where I cover like 6 of the games that we play. So I'm looking at like 30 games a month easily from the independent space. That's not even like a drop in the ocean compared to what's being released.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's yeah. Like I remember those numbers pretty well because we just done that. We've released our game Night Squad 2 a month ago, and I was looking at those Steam charts 2 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior, just looking. Okay, what games are coming out in at the same time as ours? And we're kind of lucky because on our actual launch day, there were not much of them. Like I
Mhm.
think I don't know the full total because that you would need to kind of dig even deeper in Steam. But 4 other games were considered popular and upcoming on our launch day, and it was a kind of a slow day. We I think we hit right on that day. There was not a lot of big games sucking up all the air in the room. So it was a good day. And so if we had like four other games that were popular in coming on that one day, there was probably like I think in that same day, I think I've seen 30, yeah, 30 games, pretty much sure that I've seen at least 30
Mhm.
coming out on Steam on that same day that I saw appear in the new section on that day, and
Mhm.
then disappear into oblivion. They had their a few seconds of potential fame,
Yep.
and they didn't give the numbers, so they got out.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy, and that's just Steam. It's less of a problem on consoles, but the Switch is getting very crowded, very crowded. It's not what they sold us on initially. When they first started having conversation with developers for the Nintendo Switch, they really said they would curate that thing like
Mhm.
super well, and only like just great games would be on there. I think they forgot that
Yeah. And
along the way.
oh yeah, and I remember that like it was like 2018, 2019 that like everyone couldn't stop talking about the Switch is going to be the new indie haven, indie dev gold rush for Steam or I'm sorry for Switch. And just like with everything else, like it exploded on and now and new indie game is just like another drop in the bucket for everyone else that gets on there.
Yeah, if you look at your and the problem with the Nintendo Switch right now, and I've actually had a conversation with someone from Nintendo like this week, and they know they kind of need to improve that platform at some point. But the store has little to no filtering,
Hmm.
so at least it gives you this edge as a marketing person to kind of go look and see, okay, what are the next games coming out? So you see the whole list, no filtering, just all the games that are coming out on Switch, and you can look at all of the dates and you say, okay, they are about 4 or 5 games coming out that day and the next day. So my spot will be on this day. I could
Yeah.
actually do that. I knew at what point where Night Squad 2 would be the next game coming out, and that's a huge boost of visibility.
Yeah.
Um, so the Switch has this issue with kind of classifying their games, sorting, filtering. There's none of that on the Switch.
Mm-hmm. And I guess to like follow up on that, another very big trend that's going on obviously right now is with the rise of the Epic Games Store. And I
Yeah.
was just wondering, do you have any thoughts on that from like a marketing standpoint or kind of like positioning a game on there?
Well, it's like from most of the folks that I've had conversation with, it's always a question, and we kind of wonder. But when you're an indie dev, and especially an indie dev that's self-published, Epic Game Store means potential money, because they've always been, and they're still doing buyouts for games that they want to give for free.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of thing you want. The Epic Game Store may not be Steam. It's far from Steam. But if they can cut you a check just to make that port, which is not a very difficult port, it's worth it. And we actually did for Night Squad 2. Not gonna lie, it was the objective. We were in conversation with someone from Epic. They kind of use it, I guess, as bait. I don't want to give them bad intention. So maybe they really had the intention of giving us a free spot at some point.
Hmm.
So we're like, oh, if we want to, yeah, like I know, encourage them to continue in that direction. Okay, let's do the port. Let's just
Hmm.
let's just show them that we're eager to go on Epic Game Store and have a free deal. Okay, let's do the port. So
Hmm.
we'll be on there, but we didn't sign anything of that kind. So we're on Epic, but of course we're not free, so it's not selling super well.
Hmm.
It's just it doesn't have, even if it's Epic and it's huge, it's still not part of their consumers' behavior to kind of just look for new games and browse
Hmm.
through. I guess in my head there are two types of Epic Game Store users, but there's probably several others, but like two main types. The one that are playing the Epic games, mostly Fortnite, and they just go on there and they click Fortnite and they just don't care about those games. And
Mm-hmm.
the others that are really excited to get some free games, which is
Yeah.
cool. It's a good way to sell the platform, but I think people are just going to Epic Store to get their free game.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
I
if the
feel
game
that
isn't, or the game's just an exclusive, because I have it
yeah,
for a lot of my exclusive games on there.
true, but their exclusive are very expensive because
Yeah.
developers are not. We know people. I will not divulge any numbers, but we know developers from Montreal who made Blood Roots. Was a really good beat 'em up. Like you can use anything in the environment to kill your enemies. A really cool game. And design an exclusive. So they came out first on Epic. It didn't perform super well, just in terms of direct sales.
Mm-hmm.
If you and now they've released on Steam. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
check up on them, but they've probably got better sales. Like I don't think there's a lot of people going on Epic to buy games if you compare it to
Yeah.
Steam. So an exclusive, you have I guess Epic knows that they have to kind of pay a big amount of money for
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. And we have some questions coming in from the chat, and I want to get to those next. But I do have one more general question for you before that. And like speaking about kind of how much marketing has changed for indie devs and just game development in general, I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of like the rise of streaming and YouTubers in terms of kind of how they've influenced marketing. Because this is another thing that, again, like 10 years ago, nobody really thought this was going to work. Like I remember, I'm sure all of us old people watching this. I remember people saying, "Oh, you're just going to make videos on YouTube, or you'll just play games for all day." Yeah, that's going to be a career. And fast forward today, and it has become a major point, not only in terms of marketing games, but just kind of like even just like in the design standpoint of is this game quote unquote stream friendly, is it YouTuber friendly, etc., etc.
Oh yeah, it's definitely something that we're not talking about 5 years ago or 6 years ago. If I remember my time at Freema Studio before I made the switch, sorry about that. Um, it was not really a conversation that we had. We were like the PR agents, the PR side was kind of working uh, alongside press outlets with some YouTubers,
Mm-hmm.
and they sent out keys. It was part of the people to contact, but really making it a separate, very important part of your marketing plan was not the case. We had some, like when we went to events, we had streamers coming out to our booth and add conversation, but I don't think we treated them as highly as like press people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't have that standing. Um, and now this has changed. To be honest, I have been doing a lot of work with influencers, more than with press people, for Night Squad 2, because well, maybe it's because it is very stream friendly, and I know that. So I want to really bank on that. But yeah, it's definitely changed the game. It needs to be a part of your plan because the influencers, the content creators, YouTubers and Twitchers, they are the, like, influencers in gaming did exist uh, a lot of years back. People who were like always talking about games and like writing blogs about games. They always existed, but now they're like super public and you can
Mm-hmm.
see all of that content. And when you watch a streamer, that's one of the things that I love the most about my job is browsing Twitch and getting, oh, there's a new stream of my game. I'm going to look at it and not really announce myself and just like look at how the player, that streamer, discovers the game. It not only helps me because there's visibility related to that. People are watching that person and they're seeing the game, and maybe they like it, maybe they don't like it. But it also gives me an idea of what are the weakness of the game. When the influencer is playing some part of the game, they're confused about something. They're gonna say it. You're gonna see the confused look. You're gonna say, okay, this is something we need to fix. Way better than waiting for a review score to come out and then there's nothing you can do about it. It's more. I like that human contact so much. I mean, press people from medias are people too. Yes. But there's not a direct contact I can have with them, having conversation directly in their chat, just like they're playing the game, say, hey, thanks for playing our game, and then they ask me questions, and then they will build this relationship. That's more organic. I really like working with influencers in general.
Mhm. Yep, and it has certainly led to a lot of, I think, what it means to cover video games these days. And that, I think, is a whole nother topic, talking about, like print versus, video these days. But I do want to get to some of these questions that came in. And again, for anyone watching this live right now, if you do have questions for Lauren, feel free to leave them in the comments or in the chat. So let me grab the first one here. So, Draken asks, what would be the very first step you recommend developers take to market their in progress game?
Make a plan. Like a lot of people don't have a plan on where to start and where to end. There's different philosophies in how to build a marketing plan for a game. Some people say, because they've seen other developers succeed in that way, that you need to start right away. Start right away and then just keep
Yeah.
going and going and going. I think it's a very bad idea, and it's a way to burn yourself out. I would say step one, if you want to have a solid marketing plan, you need to have a solid production plan. And sometimes I know it's hard, especially for like solo developers. Like, when are you gonna ship your game? Try to make yourself
Yeah.
a deadline. That's why a lot of people are always bashing on AAA marketing, because they impose a deadline. But at some point, you gotta have a deadline, or at least an idea of when you're gonna be launching, because
Hmm.
you won't be marketing for 4 years. You just don't do that. You're gonna burn yourself out. People are gonna forget about you anyway. It's the way it used to work, like way back. You had games that were announced like 3 years in the past, and then people remember, oh, this game is coming out, it's gonna be so amazing. This doesn't exist anymore, or unless you have a huge Kickstarter, and then the reason why people don't forget is that they've paid.
Yeah.
um you don't take years and years to pre-market. So first, decide when you think your game will be ready to be released, and then go back and say, how much time do we think we need to market it? And the answer to that, it's, of course, it depends on all of the situations. But right now, in the state of how marketing is evolving in video games, it's getting shorter and shorter.
Hmm.
I've made shorter and shorter marketing plans for every game. Night Squad 2, for example, my plan in my head was 7 months. It ended up being 1 year, but that's production. They delayed a little bit, but still, my target was not even a year. It's no use to start building something if you don't have something to show for. A lot of people have the same. A lot of like big games, you're gonna notice big games and also indie games that like have a publishers or something, like people who are doing marketing right, they always start with the same thing. They start with a bang. One day they're gonna have like 7, 10, 20 articles on a lot of big sites, or at least because they'll have one trailer. So my my answer to that is you begin when you have a trailer.
Hmm.
So your art needs to be ready enough to show. You need to have enough variety of gameplay to make an exciting trailer. Because everything you do before having that, yes, you might get some followers here and there, but like you won't get the virality of coming out of the closet and like we have never spoken of that game. This is a brand new game, never shown, and
Hmm.
we have this trailer to show for.
Yeah.
You
And
got to start with a trailer.
and I think.
So if you're not ready to have a trailer, don't do any mark. Keep it quiet. Prepare yourself. Build your game. Your game is what's going to make the trailer awesome. So make the game
Mhm.
awesome and then wait for the right time, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think that is a really important point, and it's something I think a lot of developers tend to mess up on. It is again knowing when to let people know about their game, and I think there is this tendency to kind of confuse like critical reception versus kind of like commercial reception. That I'm going to show my game of its roughest state on Twitter to my fellow developers and members of the press, and I'm going to show the second I have any footage. But while that's great, and they're going to say, "Oh, this looks amazing, looks great," it's not really like marketing at that point. Like if you're just showing sketches of a character you did, or a 3 second walk cycle, the consumer doesn't really care about that stuff.
No, no, you're gonna get it. Like I said, it's not gonna be completely useless,
Hmm.
but it's gonna be a lot of effort and like always thinking about marketing. Say, oh, what should I do next? What should I post next?
Hmm.
For barely anything. So it's better to just calm down. Like I think a lot of new developers, small indie studios are starting. They're like super nervous about marketing, and they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I should start. We should start now. We should start right now and start building up things." But no, you're gonna just. A lot of people talk about burnout
Hmm.
on these. Like they just start marketing and like, "Oh, well, I've posted so many pictures and we're not getting anything." Because it's the regular folks. Because
Yep.
you gotta think about the regular folks. Your indie dev friends, they don't they're not gonna build a big enough community.
Yep.
You know, you need the regular folks, people who are interested in video games in general, but like not something that's in development or unfinished.
Hmm.
Um, they're gonna they're gonna be seduced by a trailer and a full blown Steam page and maybe a Kickstarter. All of that requires enough to make a
Yep.
good trailer. So it's gotta be your start. And before that you can just calm down, make your game. It's not worth it if you don't have a kick ass trailer.
Hmm. Yep. So I guess to build off of that point, like let's say like I know there are developers watching this. I'm sure there's a few on my Discord as well that they're at that point where they have something amazing to show. Let's say they have some unique hook, maybe they have a small trailer, but the game is still like in their mind many years away from being released. Is it worth it for them to show it now, or would it be better for them to wait until they're at a point where they can confidently say, "Okay, my game, I will have this done roughly by X."
Yeah, I would honestly wait.
Hmm.
Because you only unless you've done like big marketing, you're only have one shot
Hmm.
at kind of getting that reveal moment, like this moment of okay, I'm gonna reach out to a lot of press outlets, YouTubers, Twitchers. I'm gonna reach out to a lot of people, show them this trailer, and say, "Hey, are you interested to check out this game?" Like ideally, it would also come with a very short demo, but
Hmm.
that's a wish. You can start marketing without a demo, but you can kind of see that when people are excited about the thing you're showing them, For example, a trailer. What you want to do as a marketer or anyone that has a plan is to take the hand of that person and bring them with you in this path of, okay, now try it. Oh, you like it very much, now wishlist it, and then I'm gonna tell you when it's out, and
Mhm.
then buy it.
Yeah.
So that path can't be super long. It can't
Mhm.
be a 2 year journey of dev blog. Like I've there's a lot of good in having dev blogs and stuff like that, but they should, I think, happen after that trade
Mhm.
when you have gathered a, hopefully a lot of people from that initial burst, and this will create your community, your base community. Like
Yeah.
this community is big enough to kind of be to share with each other and talk to you and have a conversation and make it feel like a community other than just a few fans. Like
Yeah.
so that would be my advice for all of. I know that a lot of indie developers are starting. They're like, oh, I like this dev blog of another developer, so I'm gonna make my own dev blog. Well,
Mhm.
if your dev blog has in average 3 to 4 views every time you post it, you are just wasting energy. And
Mhm.
it's nothing against your game. Your game is it could be very good. You're just taking all of that time to blog, and it's not worth it. You're just wasting energy and time. Focus
Mhm.
on your game. Make your
Yeah.
game great. You can't sell it anyway. It's not out. You can't make money out of that game anyway.
Mhm.
Chill, work on your game.
Yeah.
Then market when it's closer to being ready, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and going back to what you said about like the importance of a trailer, like the example that I always like to go back to was for the game of My Friend Pedro. That I remember, like this was like a year and a half before anybody heard about it, and all I remember seeing was like this like trailer from like the developer on a Facebook group, and he was like, "I just I put this thing together. I have this little game. What do you guys think?" And he's like showing like the character like flipping around and shooting and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then 1 year later, it gets picked up by Devolver, and again, like all I remember about that game was just this one little like again like 2 minute trailer on a Facebook indie dev group, and that was like the first time I heard about that game.
And it makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that story is a story told so many times. And we've never talked about publishers yet tonight,
Hmm.
but publishers, they're kind of one of the target market that when you're making a game,
Hmm.
like you would like to make it and self-publish it. That's all fine. But getting a publisher, it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
So if you um, if you make a kick-ass trailer, that could be enough for publishers to notice you
Hmm.
because it gets some, I don't know, some virality. Publishers always have scouts. They're looking at a lot of stuff that are posted online, probably in that same Facebook group. I don't know. Maybe it's
Hmm.
coming from there. Um, and you won't get publishers interested with dev blogs and screenshots and stuff like that.
Concept art,
So
yeah.
yeah, and even worse, I'm always saying a kick-ass trailer or a good trailer. Don't make a bad trailer. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You can't just say I'm gonna just do a first one that's gonna just gameplay. Well, your game is out now. You have wasted your shot.
Hmm.
And if a publisher sees that, they're gonna watch it once, and they're probably gonna remember. Oh yeah, that's no, I didn't resonate with at
Yeah.
all.
Pass.
And yeah, pass. And they're really quick to pass because so many games are. So and yeah, pitch document. They get a lot of pitch document. Well, a
Hmm.
trailer that could just do the trick. Could
Yeah.
just do the trick. So,
Okay. Your
so
camera
yeah, I was
is
talking
off.
about when I cut. I was talking about Derek.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he was there to have a conversation and probably push really to make a good trailer
Hmm.
agenda. Make a good trailer.
All right. Your camera is off, by the way.
Oh, I'm gonna put that on again. Yeah, I don't know. I think my internet kind of caught.
Uh-oh. Wait, there we go.
Sorry,
Yeah.
people. You, I guess you missed my face. I'm here now.
Okay. Yep, and like you said, like the first time somebody sees your game is very important.
Yeah.
And I won't kind of elaborate or add on to what you said a few minutes ago about like kind of where to focus your energy on. Because this is something like for me that I've struggled with and I've had to learn. Like when I was first starting to do this, I was making videos, I was writing, I was on multiple social media, and one of the big things I had to do was kind of like figure out okay, how much energy do I reasonably have in a 12 to 18 hour day? What can I do during that day? And I have to maximize that because it is very easy, just and especially for like solo and first time developers, you just say, I'm gonna work 20 hours a day, no sleep. I'm gonna bang this game out in a year. I'm gonna be rich and famous, and most likely they're gonna collapse at their keyboard after maybe like a few weeks or a month.
That's for sure. And we hear these stories very often.
Mm-hmm.
That's why one of the key message I want to say tonight to all of these indie developers or small teams worrying about marketing. I would worry more about production first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can't market a game that will never be finished.
Yep.
It's you're wasting your time and energy and mental health on this when you know that your game is probably gonna be done. I don't know in a year, okay, or maybe 8 months. Okay, now you're ready to make a move.
Yep, and as you also just said, by that point, you should have some kick-ass footage. You should have enough there that you can, blow open the gates, set off the fireworks, and let people know, look at my amazing game. Oh, guess what? It will be out in 6 months, 12 months. Go wishlist it now.
Exactly, and at that point, there's a few things that you need to have,
Mm-hmm.
and one, I'd say the trailer is number one, but like number two, and it's not really hard to make. Make your Steam page, so you can have a direct call to action. That's okay. You like that trailer? Wishlist it, please, and
Yep.
then your epic quest for more wishlists begin.
Yep.
But usually it begins strong with that first day. Your trailer, you gotta post this trailer everywhere in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna get hopefully a good boost of wish list to kind of start the machine.
Yep. Getting back to some questions here. I'm going to try and sprinkle in some of my questions and some of the audience questions as they kind of like fit our talk. So this next question also came from Draken, and he asked, "How can a developer find the right audience for their game?"
Well, it depends on the game itself. I think the first step in any like marketing endeavor and market research is to find comparables. I know everyone likes to think their game is like completely unique and there's no other games out there that are even close to their genius. But there are probably games that are close. Games that are going to search for the same kind of fun. So first, try and find those games. That would be really the first step. And look at how these games are marketed and what kind of social media they're doing, and and look at what are the strengths and weaknesses of this game compared to yours. It's really the step one. Find your comparables, and this is actually what people are gonna compare your game to anyway. When they're gonna discover and you're gonna watch your trailer and say, oh yeah, it's like this game, but it has more of this, or it's like this game I've played. I liked it. It's a good feeling. Being close to a game that people like is a good thing in marketing. It's a there's a term for that that it just slips my mind, but um, people want to find something that they're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
If your game is too completely out there, uh, there's a big chance that they won't feel comfortable with. Um, So find comparable games, and then like there's a lot of like imagining what your target audience is, because if for example your game is a mash of game A and game B, you don't know which of those two audiences is going to be more interested in your game. Usually what's good for that is usually the announcement when you do announce your game. You don't have to be picky when you announce your game. Announce it everywhere, and then you're gonna see, I don't know on what platform there's more people reacting to it, and people are probably gonna do those comparisons, and they're gonna say, oh, it's like I play this game and it looks like a lot like this other game. And then, okay, you're starting to build an idea of what your target gamer is. um and you get to work with that. So if I will give one concrete example, because I'm just out of it with a Night Squad 2. We know that our game is multiplayer, so of course your audience is people who like to play games with other people. I know people usually play different types of games, but you know that people who played, for example, in my case, played games like Overcooked, um, Fall Guys. Recently, Among Us appeared on our radar because it wasn't there before, and they like to play games with their friends. So it creates your persona of what is your target gamer. We're not going to be aiming for this enormous market of RPG players, because our game is just not that. So it's about looking at what other games that these people who could be interested in your game are currently playing, because you're not creating gamers. You're getting them to play your game. So you're currently playing this game. Okay, well, look at my game. You like this game, you should like my game, so come in here.
Definitely. And as you just said there about like trying to find the people for your game, and people like to know what they're getting into. Like we have a term that Shark and I we've coined that your game needs to be safely extreme. It has to be just normal or comparative enough that people know what it is, but also to be different enough that they're not just thinking to themselves, "I'm just buying the same game that I already bought." And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and one of the things I think I see another mistake a lot of indie devs make is that they typically like to go into hermit mode when they're developing a game. Like they will not look at anything from the outside world for months, even years at a time, and they don't really understand what is going on with the market. How have things changed? What game is like my game now? And that goes beyond marketing. That also goes into game design, because I've seen developers struggle. Like they'll work on a game for like 3 to 5 years and then release at a point where everybody has moved on from the genre, or B, there are better examples of this game, and why should they even bother looking at your game?
Oh yeah, and this is very true. I need to go back to something I said earlier tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Your actual marketing actions need to be done, I'd say, not more than a year before releasing.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to have your mind open to marketability all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So still look at what other games are doing. We them yourself, you have not announced, but you can look at what other games are coming out that are on the same genre. You should look at every game that's coming out on not on Steam, because there's too many of them, but like take a console for example, and look at all the games that are coming out of the same genre
Mm-hmm.
as yours, and just look at their trailer. I just thought, please, to see, okay, that's the current state of the market. I'll give a good example for that because was a very costly lesson for us when we started developing Aftercharge, our previous game launched before Night Squad 2. We started development on this game in late 2015. And this game was always planned to be a first person shooter, a team based first person shooter. And in our head, and at that time in the market, you have to go back in 2015. Fortnite wasn't a thing. So it just gives you an idea. PUBG didn't exist. Those big game changer battle royale didn't exist. And in the free to play, in the first person shooter space, there were no free to plays. It was just not something. It So we as a studio assumed at that point in 2015 that we would make our game a premium game. It's a shooter. It's a team-based shooter. You play with your friends. You play with strangers online. It's gonna be cheap, but a premium game, and then it's gonna be cool. It wasn't cool because during the time of our development, it was quite long. It was complicated to make.
Mhm.
Um, we had to scale up the team. A lot of technological obstacle. So it took a good 3 years of development before
Mhm.
actually releasing. A lot of things changed in that space
Yeah.
during those years. Fortnite is one example. Apex Legends actually launched 1 month after us.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of big games in the first person shooter space appeared. Overwatch launched, but also almost at the same time or close to it, Paladins, free to play first person
Mhm.
team based shooter released. So that space changed entirely. And then when we came out, we came out wrong. We were. It's hard to change it to free to play. A lot of people just said, just change it to free to play. When how am I gonna make money on this? So we just couldn't undo all the things that we did. We probably could have done that if we made that decision way earlier,
Mhm.
but we didn't.
Yeah,
So
and
we were stuck with that premium game that didn't have enough players because it was premium. Um, and then we still had to pay server costs for it was a mess. It didn't have enough content if you compared it to free to play games. So obviously that first person shooter crowd didn't connect with our game. The price tag was too high for the amount of content, but it wasn't the case back in 2015. So we
yeah,
we kind of just we didn't adapt. We didn't adapt.
yeah, and I've heard similar horror stories from developers like that. That they'll start a game, and in the span of 3 5 years, the market is completely different, and your game may be just too dated for anyone else to really get into now.
Yeah, and also you mentioned still gonna be talking about that failure because you learn from failure, right?
Yep.
So this aftercharge add that problem. They're the only anchor. That's the term I was searching. The only anchor that people had was okay. It's a shooter. I know shooters. I've played shooter in the past, but we took the originality or the uniqueness too far. We screwed up with not all, but most of the I don't know the things that people are used to in a first person shooter. We
Mhm.
went way too far in the originality in our hook of like one team is invisible and the other team is invincible. So ammos didn't work like usual in shooters. When you were playing the invisible guys, you were actually a melee players. A lot of things that really just made I'd say first person shooters uncomfortable. But that was our main target. So that on that way we didn't succeed.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good segue into this question I was thinking about. That one of the other challenges when we talk about game development and game marketing is what the content you have available. Like, there's a reason why very artistically driven, very stylized games usually do really well. Because, you can make a trailer out of something like Grease or Ori, and, that's going to knock everybody's socks off. But if, let's say, you're doing something very experimental, something that really isn't seen before, how do you market that to people? Like, as you said, your example, like, if you're building a first person shooter that is nothing like any other first person shooter anyone's ever played, how do you pitch that to somebody when they could just, play Doom or play Fortnite or pick any major name out there?
I think the step one will be rethink some of the thing you are planning in your design, because it's gonna be rough. But my advice, if you want to go that super original, never seen before route, is try and get some people to play it, like streamers, before actually making the trailer. Maybe pay them if you can to get their live reactions to put in your trailer. So they're gonna have kind of this validation of, oh, I don't quite understand it. Your trailer is it's hard to make a trailer for that game because it's so original and out there. Well, just show faces of people having fun, and it's psychological, but it should do the trick. If you're confident your game is fun, but that's also pretty hard to achieve, to be absolutely sure that people are gonna have fun with it. Um, that would be my advice. But advice number one is don't go too far. Don't go too far in that originality and never seen before thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare to see a game succeed incredibly well, or just well, that are just completely out there,
Yeah.
completely wild in all the aspects. You need kind of that hook in
Mm-hmm.
marketing, that one sentence or one thing that sets you completely apart, that you're like, oh, I've never heard these combinations of words before.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to anchor that into something that people are used to. And
Yeah.
you mentioned art style. Art style is, I know that most of indie devs, they're not artists, like people are starting, they're programmers, and they don't think twice about art. They're just gonna
Mm.
like order some pixel art or stuff. Think your art style could just sell you the entire game.
Yep.
And we've seen that. Ori is a great example. It's a good game, but what probably seduced Microsoft at the very first when they signed Ori was just the art style. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
this is so beautiful. And I've
Yep.
heard that so many times. I've talked to publishers and platform holders having, and I've heard them have a chat about that. Oh, that new game. Oh, that game. It's that trailer is so amazing,
Yep.
so beautiful. And they're like all over the art style. And your trailer is art. So your art style is super important, and it could sell the entire game from beginning to start. It's gonna sell the publishers on your art style. They're gonna be, oh, I love this, I want to get
Mm-hmm.
it, and they're gonna fund you. And then you're gonna make the trailer. It's gonna go viral because of the looks of it. So beautiful. You got a lot of wish lists like this, and we're not even talking about gameplay yet. And we have not even said a word about gameplay. People are just looking at GIFs online and they're like, beautiful. So art style, not just the quality of art. Like, I'm gonna do this game that has this I don't know, this anime style that's gonna be well done. Well, it's been seen, or do it excellently. Um, Find a way to make your art style unique, and it should really help you.
Hmm. Yep, and as we've said, like over the course of this cast so far, like you need to have that hook. You need to have, as you said, like that anchor. You need something for people to kind of attach your game to. And like for myself, I play just about every indie game that's submitted to me. Like I have played some ridiculously out there concepts for games, stuff like most consumers will never ever experience. And while I enjoy it, a lot of these games simply have like less than 100 reviews. They may, barely break 500. And it is a shame. And it is that risk I think a lot of developers struggle with, that I want to make something, nobody's ever seen before, but in the same vein, if nobody's ever seen it before, how do you know there's going to be a market for this concept?
It's playing a very risky game,
Mm-hmm.
a game that I would absolutely not recommend, especially if it's your first game. You
Yep.
know, I guess that an indie dev that had one commercial success already could
Mm-hmm.
go there, like could try that out.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta remember that making games and selling them is is closer to entertainment than like art.
Uh-huh.
It's I know there's a lot of art going on in there, but it's selling things. You know, you're selling something. So people, if they want to, if they are to buy it, just think about what your thought process is when
Mm-hmm.
you want to buy something. Really spend money on something. Like, I'm gonna be. Am I sure I'm gonna have fun with this? How can I be sure? Oh well, this looks like this other game that I liked, but this cool twist is cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have fun. And then when they're done with that thought process, they purchase. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if they watch the trailer and they're like, "Well, I'm not even sure how you actually play this," I really doubt, unless someone else from the outside really recommends it and like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
is really good. Influencers could have that power. A
Yep.
game that's completely weird and unique uh, could get some trending um, through influencers. That could be from efforts done by the developer or just pure luck, because this can happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, games are discovered out of luck. There's stories about that.
And actually, with what you just said, that brings up another question I wanted to ask quickly, and I also want to get a few more questions in chat. Because another thing I hear a lot of indie developers struggle with is understanding why a game succeeds in the market. And what you just said about, a game being lucky, that there are developers out there who they tend to only look at kind of the after effects of marketing the game. They look at a game like Darkest Dungeon and say, oh, this game did well because, a lot of people played it. Or this game did well because it was creepy. And, it just got lucky. I'll just make a similar game and, if I get 20% of the audience, I'll be rich and famous. And what I want to ask you about from a marketing standpoint is just how often does quote unquote luck matter when it comes to like marketing? Because one of the things that like Shark and I've talked with other developers about is that game development is very risky. It's an inherently a risky business, and oftentimes I see developers kind of chase winning the lottery as their strategy for succeeding, where I think a lot of this really comes down to kind of risk mitigation. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, there's you can't have luck in your marketing plan. It happens sometimes, and usually these games we know about them because we know that they came out of nowhere. Among Us is one example. Uh, it's nothing against the developers and what they've done before, but they're definitely hit a stroke of luck. And it's clear because they released a while back, and then suddenly out of nowhere, coming out of no uh, purposely
Hmm.
planned marketing beat, they became extremely popular.
Hmm.
But like Among Us is just one example, and I'm struggling to find another one that's clearly luck.
Hmm.
Because Darkest Dungeon, for example, I know that it got popular, and people are like, this is probably because X, Y, and Z. But I've been doing a lot of shows of a lot of Penny Arcade Expo, the PAXs, before when back in the time where it was still happening
Hmm.
live,
Hmm.
and I've seen these guys. Can't remember the name of the developers though behind this. But they've been showing Darkest Dungeon for a while, and their Steam page was probably up for a while. So maybe that's the story of just a long term wish list gathering that ended up just resonating with people when they launched. But they did a lot of things. It didn't happen just by luck.
Yep.
They worked really hard. So luck can happen, um, but you can't have it in your marketing plan. It's just you have to try to work and get your luck. I'll give another example of one lucky thing that happened to me. It wasn't lucky. It was I guess I purchased my luck on this. I was looking for influencers to kind of sponsor for the launch of Night Squad 2, and I found an influencer that was a great fit for our game that I approached. It was a Portuguese, not a Portuguese, a Brazilian YouTube streamer. Sorry, and I got in touch with him and said, "Oh, I would like you to discover a game to play for 1 hour. Here's a little bit of money, and I hope you like it." And he got into it. He played, and I thought it was it. I made my hit, but then 2 days later, a huge stream happened. A dude with 42,000
Hmm.
viewers pops up in my Twitch, and like, what the hell? I
Hmm.
didn't plan this. Is it luck? No, it wasn't entirely luck. That dude was playing with the other Brazilian guy that I've paid for. So the guy liked the game so much, he talked to his friend. It just happened that one of his friend was an enormous Twitcher. So they played 2 hours of it, and there you go. So it wasn't luck because I kind of made our game discoverable by telling that person. But I didn't ask for this enormous stream. So if you do nothing, your chances of just being lucky, I
Hmm.
guess, are very small.
Hmm. Yep. And there's suddenly so much we can unpack with that too. As a quick time check, we are just over an hour in, technical issues notwithstanding. So I figure if it works for you, are you good for at least like another 45 minutes to an hour?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Still got. I only scratched the surface. I think we only
Oh
have
yeah.
scratched the surface on so many things to talk about.
Hmm. Getting back to some questions in chat, Thorn asked, with games being an entertainment commodity, are there any factors in marketing terms you are extremely concerned about?
In marketing terms, well, selling games, like, it's entertainment. You're saying entertainment, and entertainment in general is shifting. It's evolving, and I think in general, consumers are really less and less eager to spend direct money. And yes, this is concerning to a certain point. You have these services that are popping up here and there to kind of give the equivalent of a Netflix for games. But Netflix has already changed the landscape uh, entirely in terms of movies and TV shows.
Hmm.
Um, and it's gonna happen to gaming. It's already happening. There's a lot of good out there for developers. For example, when you sign a deal for Game Pass, you get a big check. It's cool. You get a big check, but it keeps consumers, players, in a state of I don't want to spend money for a game. I have all of these other games, so they they are less and less ready to spend money. So you need to always have that in mind when you're making your business model. Um, prices are in indies. Prices are going or down a bit. People are really looking for those sweet sales. Maybe regular prices are going up,
Yeah.
but you see bigger sales because you kind of want to get your potential consumers to just spend just a little bit of money to get my game for just this small amount of money. Because that's the reality. So we kind of have to adapt to it, and there are ways for developers to adapt to it, but I think it requires more business development and signing deals. And I know that these things are harder when you're starting. You don't have this network. You need to go through a publisher, and you need to convince that publishers are very scared of first timers, the developers working on their first games. They're usually not very eager to jump on those games. So yes, the state. I said that marketing and game is getting harder and harder. Uh, that's also a factor in that. So yes, people are less ready to spend money.
Hmm. And another question from Thorn, he asked, are there any marketing frameworks you recommend smaller developers use, like the big picture framework?
I'm not sure I got the question. To be frank, like a template of a marketing plan, or some kind.
Hmm. While we wait for him to clarify, he did ask another question. As far as marketing versus community management, how much do you do marketing with money and trailers versus marketing with community management and earned marketing?
Well, I'd say that usually my spending in marketing are is really focused on those big beats.
Hmm.
You know, announcing your game, announcing a release date, and actually releasing. This is when I spend the money. But all the work that is done in between, and that's a lot of work, a lot of days, months of kind of trying to get this community and those wish lists to go up. That's all community management. That's all
Hmm.
usually not directly paid. Um, in the grand scheme of things, I spend way more time doing community management and trying to get things um, to move organically than paid,
Hmm.
because it can cost a lot of money,
Yep.
and it doesn't always get good results. I've done a lot of paid marketing that wasn't worth it. So when it's free, it's always worth it.
Hmm. And again, it goes back to maximizing what you're doing, just like with game dev, just like with marketing. Um,
Absolutely.
He did clarify. He said it was a type of outline, like more of a school style. That was what he was talking about, like the big picture framework.
Okay. So yeah, pretty much. I, I'd say if you, I'll give you what would be my ideal plan for marketing for my next game. Okay, so it doesn't really apply to your situation, maybe because you feel like you need to make a bigger build up. I don't know, but what I will be probably doing for my next game is I'm gonna be talking with the rest of the team. We're a small team, so we're very indie. So unless you're a solo developer, we're close to be in the same space. So figure out when we want to be releasing, then listen to what they're saying, then add like 5 months because that's
Mm-hmm.
not gonna happen at their first. Just don't listen to them. Add 5 months, and then that new date 5 months later, go back a year before, and that's your frame. No marketing happens before that, and then uh early the first year before, start business development. So at that point, you might be looking for publishers, and publishers will be looking for games that it might fit in their calendar in that year. So early on, you might not have a trailer, but you probably have gameplay, that very rough gameplay. You can have someone play and you can pitch it. Start pitching to publishers. That would be my 1 year thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would say try to get a publisher if you can't. 6 months before my launch, I would announce my game. So have a trailer ready, Steam page, website, social media accounts. If you want to make a separate one for my game other than my studio, like just appear in the world, press stuff. 6 months. And then fast forward during that time, I can do a whole lot of things. What are the digital events I can participate in? Um, Try to get some influencers to play a version that they could put on a YouTube trailer. No payment there. Just try to get the word out. You know, you might get some very big YouTuber to just happen to look at your email on that day
Yeah.
and make a big video. You get some wish list, you win. So during that time, that's what you try to do. You build your assets for your release date, announcement. You make some community management, and you try and keep the flame going for that time. Then 1 month before launch, or maybe 2 months before launch, if you think you're ready. It depends on a lot of factors. Maybe you're releasing just on PC. That makes it a lot easier. If you're releasing on console, you want to make sure to be done with certifications. Make
Yeah.
sure that you can release your game. And when you have a solid release date, you announce it. And that's another big marketing beat. Usually people are more ready to follow you, wishlist you, get your game in their planning if you have an actual date. Like it's a promise now. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna release soon. It's you have a date. That's
Soon with air
that's a
quotes.
strong. Yeah, exactly. But without air quotes, you have a
Mm-hmm.
date. You really have pinpointed that day where you will be releasing, and that's huge for a marketing call to action. You're not releasing soon. You're releasing on that day.
Yeah.
So you keep your followers that first discovered your game through the reveal 6 months ago, like in that case 4 months ago, they still remember you, and now you're kind of doing this second appearance. Like, oh, it's I remember this. It was very interesting. Now I'm gonna purchase it, and then arrive your launch date. This is about the time where you need to kind of step up all of that community management, marketing. So everything you were doing, you just do more of it. If you had your I don't know, you were posting on social media like I don't know 2 times a week. now you gotta crank it up like once a day. It's
Hmm.
time to get everything out there, every gift that you can make of your game, every important future feature that you want to bring up. That's the time. That's really the time where you need to do that last sprint before launching.
Hmm.
And then on launch, you do everything you can. That one launch day is by far the most important day in the entire cycle of your game.
Yep.
This you will never get as much visibility on Steam as on that day. And it goes
Hmm.
the same for the Xbox, for Switch, for PlayStation. It's that one day that needs to convert. You need all of these people who saw your trailer on the first announcement and or just discovered you on the release date announcement, and they need to purchase on that one day if you want to have a shot. So
Hmm.
that would be my pretty much my framework. If you want anything more precise in there, just ask. I can try and make a better marketing plan on the fly tonight.
All right. And I want to go back to what you said a minute ago about having like a web page, having a store page, like having a presence. Because this is something that I still see a lot of developers struggle with. I want to get your thoughts on this. Is having that footprint online. That there are some developers out there that all they'll have maybe is just a Steam store page, nothing else. Some developers may have a forum, they may have a website, they may not even have a actual site for their game. Like for you, and like in your opinion, like what do you think are the essentials in terms of like an online footprint for a game these days?
Um, to be honest, the website isn't essential. Especially if your game is only coming out on Steam, which is the case of most indie devs working on their first game, and a lot of devs only go for PC. It's a big market. And in that case, really, a website isn't super helpful at all. Um, so the Steam page is number one, number absolutely one. It's well referenced on Google. Um, it's a frame that people are used to. They know where to get the right information. It starts with the trailer. It's really good. It's really the place that you want to push forward most of the time. So that's one. Two is your trailer on YouTube. It needs to come out. It needs when you type the name of your game. Also, try and select a name for your game that's not already used. That's a big plus. We didn't do well when we released Night Squad, the first one. Uh, there were no TV series called Night Squad. Now I struggle with that because we kept thinking the name Night Squad, but now there's this Nickelodeon teenage series called Night Squad, and it's really messing up most of my things. But yeah, I got to deal with that. Steam page, your trailer, and that's the basic. Really the basic. I would say make a Twitter account because it's so easy. I'm a Twitter boy, so of course I'm more close to. I'm more used to Twitter. I like Twitter. I'm comfortable in Twitter. But like it's gonna be more pertinent than a Facebook page. That's for sure. But I guess if you're into that kind of thing, you could have your own YouTube channel and post dev blog on there. You're gonna be well referenced. YouTube is a great platform. It takes a lot of effort to create content,
Yes.
and that's something I want to avoid because I can't post on YouTube on a regular basis. I can tweet on a regular basis. That's really easy. Um, Other than that, yeah, these are the essentials. I would say that if you have a Steam page, a trailer, and a Twitter account, you're kind of good to go.
Yeah.
A website, the reason why we always kind of make a website because we're always making games with multiple platforms. So when we do marketing that is not targeted, it's just wide marketing, I like to redirect people to a place where they can choose the platform they want to purchase on. So for an example, in Night Squad 2, we're available on Steam, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and Epic Store. So I cannot always put all the four links, on a, so I on our website nightsquad2.com,
Mhm.
um, it's even before the trailer because I know that people are gonna arrive there through other marketing and they're just gonna go there and see, okay, I want to purchase on Xbox. Give me to Xbox, and then you go to Xbox and then you purchase. Um, that's really the only use. And as for a company website, uh, our company website is ugly. There's nothing on it because there's absolutely no use for it for us.
Mhm.
We don't recruit, we don't hire, we don't. So it's just it's more important to have one for your product.
Mhm. And what I wanted to add to that is, I do think that one thing a lot of developers mess up on is not having a way to directly contact them. And as you said, like Twitter is an important point. Like, and I think like for like us sitting here, this stuff sounds like second nature. But I still have ran into developers that I'll find their Steam page. I'm like, this looks amazing. I want to reach out to them. There's nothing. There's like no website. They don't have a Twitter account. They don't have email posts anywhere. It's just like, how do these people like get in touch with you? Like, there's just nothing.
Yeah, it's just, no, there's it's a bad idea. You kind of need to have a point of contact. Twitter is good, but a lot of people are. You can't have only Twitter. So I think I would add one to the list. You need to have like a general email,
Hmm. Yeah.
so people can, and it can be all kinds of people. It could be very interesting people, like I would name one example. We had a YouTuber, a big YouTuber called Mr. Fruit,
Hmm.
who actually contacted us through our contact at chainsawesomegames.com. He reached out to us. That's not something that happens very frequently for big YouTubers and
Hmm.
streamers. Usually it's the other way around. I try to get them to play our game, or we receive requests from small time YouTuber and streamers.
Hmm.
But this one I actually didn't even believe. We received it, and I had to double check because usually when it's a big content creator, I always do a very small double check to see, is this true or am I just giving away a key? And I checked. It checked out. It was really Mr. Fruit, and I'm like, yes, take this key and please play our game. He did, and it's right now. I think it's still standing as one of our biggest YouTube video from our game After Charge because he liked the game. He made a video and it was
Hmm.
pretty big.
Yep.
So would never have happened. He didn't reach out through Twitter. He reached out through contact at chainsawsandgames.com. Um, so yeah, have an
Hmm.
email. Add that to the list. So we're at Steam page, trailer,
Social
Twitter,
media.
and
Yeah.
and one email address. That's not
Yep.
a person. People are when they reach out to a developer, they want to reach out to kind of a company, and then they discover it's just one guy, but you have to be the company.
Yeah. All right. Another question from Thorn. Are there big dangers to overhyping slash promising on the small indie perspective?
Yes, I would say so. It could be tempting, to kind of not really lie about it, but like oversell something, because you want to have a hook. Like it comes down to that. It could be a bigger hook if you lie, because you can say, "Oh, this game is gonna be 1,000 hours to complete." Oh, this is so great. Um, but at some point, it's gonna bite you.
Yeah.
You better be very very honest with something. usually indie developers are humble and
Uh-oh. Oh, we lost Lauren again. His internet crapped out. Wait, he's coming back.
yes, my
There.
Discord loaded again, so I guess my camera is also turned
Yeah.
off. Sorry, I don't know what's happening. Discord is usually so stable.
Mm-hmm.
So before I cut, we were talking about I was talking about No Man's Sky. So that's the only counterexample I know. Usually, yeah, it's not something that happened that often. Uh, yeah, I'd say indie developers are usually um, bad at selling their games, so they're doing the opposite. They're struggling to find what's so awesome about their game, more than just over hyping it. It's rarely seen from a small indie developer
Mm-hmm.
to hype a game and then people are disappointed. It's an indie developer, unless it's like a developer that has a lot of experience and is like I would say they fall into that other category of very successful indie developers are not like I've heard many terms for that like double A or I've even heard triple I. I'm like, what does that come out? But like,
Oh god, that brings up the whole was an indie question. I'm
yeah,
sure we could spend a few hours on that one.
true. But these developers, veteran indie developers, have delivered a lot of great games. These guys can actually overhype a game because people have expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So expectations when you all have always made great games, expectations are pretty high. So I guess you gotta have to deal with that.
Let's see.
So be more careful if you are in this. I'd say lucky situation of having a lot of hyped fans who are eager to see your next game.
Mm-hmm. All right. The next question, Shark asked this. Now, this was kind of a response we were talking about devlogs and dev streams earlier, but he was wondering: are devlogs and dev streams and such good in the pre-trailer stage? I think you kind of answered that point already, right? You said that it's more important, probably post-trailer.
Yeah, it's tempting because when you kind of making your way into this world and working maybe on your first game, you want to share this experience, and you see other small developers doing that to share dev blogs of very early stuff. Uh, it's not useless, but it's a lot. I find it to be a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
spent not at the right time. So these things are cool. You should do it, especially if you think your game as this audience of techie people who are maybe game developers themselves. Uh, do them. That's cool, but I would say focus your efforts on doing those post trailer and most ideally closer to launch. Even if you have to kind of lie about it, like if you say you're working on this, maybe you've done that like 3 months ago, but that your story is still valid. Post it closer to launch, even if it maybe some developers I could call you on it like, oh, you can't be so close to launching and just having done this feature. Like, don't listen to them. You need your better content to be closer to launch.
Okay. Let's see. Thorn asks another question: is there a percentage of effort or resources you put into marketing?
Well, it really it really depends
Mm-hmm.
on in terms of resource. Like I'm one person out of a 6 people studio, so do the math. I
Mm-hmm.
think um I think I'm I think I'm enough. for the size of our team. And we'd like to have a publisher that would definitely help us out. But most of the time, I do all the stuff alone, and I think it's enough. Like production is still more important, and we're not in a situation. We're kind of lucky. We're the lucky guys in indie development because we don't need to make that much money to cover our costs because we're cheap. We're not usually not paying us immense salaries, but we don't have a lot of overhead, so our games are pretty much inexpensive. So you don't need to make that much money to just cover the cost. It's not the same thing in triple A. The actual triple A industry is having a hard time, a very hard time, because games are costing more and more
Yeah.
and more and more. People are less ready to spend money on them, and marketing is costing more and more and more. And in their case, I think it's like 50-50. Like you make a game for it's gonna cost you 20 million. You're gonna spend 20 million in marketing. It's crazy as that. But in the indie developer perspective, if I'll crunch the numbers here on how much I spent in marketing, it's about 1/8. In the case of Night Squad 2, if I take just this one, it's about 1/8 of our entire like budget. So if you take production and marketing, you just make a big lump of number. Only 1/8 of this is actually marketing.
Mm.
So it's not a huge chunk.
Okay. And to add on to that, I guess a question for myself. In terms of like how you spend your money on marketing, because this is another thing I've seen a lot of developers like go all over the place on. Some will go do Facebook ads, some will take out something on YouTube. They may hire a publisher specifically for marketing. I guess when you're actually like putting together your marketing plan, anything like major, any major areas should developers focus on? And are there any that maybe aren't as important, maybe could be more of like, if everything else worked, then we'll go here?
I would say that the major part. I'm gonna sound like a broken record there. Uh, but we said how important the trailer was. So allocate enough money to make sure that you have a great trailer, and that's probably going to be including outside experts and outside work, and rights for some music. That I think is the most important
Mm-hmm.
spending for your first trailer, but also your launch trailer. So these two trailers, um, it can, if you're working with an outside agency, it can be quite a lot of money. But I think it's worth. I think it's the money that you're gonna see um, coming back the best. You won't see it, but you're gonna get the feeling that it's gonna add quality to your Steam page, and your
Mm-hmm.
Steam page is very important. And I would say again, also in that field, if you think you need it, and be honest with yourself, spending on an artist, work for hire artist for your key marketing art is very valuable. We did that. We looked at our game, and even our art director agreed on that. We kind of needed to have a key art that looked super awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't feel like she had the skill set to make it like triple A grade key art. So
Mm-hmm.
that key art is, for example, your small image on Steam, um, that you could use on all of the platforms. You could use it on Switch, on Xbox. It's kind of your cover art if you were in a physical space. These things are super important because they are part of the process of purchasing your game for pretty
Mm-hmm.
much anyone.
Yep.
Think of your own process of purchasing a game. You might just happen to see it on the store, and it's the case of most of your sales, people who have never heard of your game, they're gonna just see it on launch day. They're gonna say, "Oh, this this looks cool." And when they have this reaction, the only thing they've seen is your key art and your name. They are not on your page yet, so they have not even looked at a single screenshot or a trailer. They've just seen one picture. So that picture better be awesome.
Yep.
Because you're gonna lose them anyway. So these we actually spent on that because we didn't feel well but our art director, the one who actually draws our characters, and she's responsible of all the art. She agreed that we needed outside help of super expert on key art. So we did that. Very effective spending, I'm sure.
Mhm.
And the other one I would say is some influencers around launch. This get some money ready for it. It's the new reality. Influencers, even smaller ones,
Mhm.
uh, could make like a domino effect, and that could have a good impact on your visibility on launch day, because if you pay them, you kind of choose. So you can pick a ton of small influencers or a few very big
Mhm.
one that are you're sure they will like your game, and just pay them. So you choose when they play it on launch day. So you're going to focus your efforts on that launch day and get as much visibility of possible as possible, get some possible virality. And another one would be at least a little bit of PR.
Mhm.
Get a PR agency. There are a few PR agencies who are pretty cheap, and you can hire them only like for, I'd say, the end of your cycle. Let's go back to my frame. Like, not when you announce. Try to announce by yourself. If you really are looking at your budget and you say, "Oh, I'm going to be tight," don't get a PR agency for announcing, because that's kind of rolling the dice. You're announcing, maybe it's going to go viral or not. At least now I'm announced. And focus this company, this agency, this outside help on PR side,
Mhm.
for when you announce a launch date. You become more concrete. You're something that's actually coming out. And so maybe you pay them for 2 months,
Okay.
and yeah, that's also an effective way of spending it.
Okay.
These are, I would say, the things that you just can't do without,
Mhm.
or you could, but I
Mhm.
would not recommend it.
Okay.
And
Let's.
and in a different reality, I would also have recommended at least two shows if you can. One very early when you were just announced. Any kind of conventions, maybe a GDC or Penny Arcade Expo, a Tokyo Game Show, an event close to when you announce, and an event as close as possible when you launch, so you're still hot.
Hmm. And speaking about like trade shows and events, that brings up another question I wanted to ask you. Like, given how much things have changed, again with like the rise of influencers, and even with just what happened last year with COVID and everyone being forced locked down, are trade shows and conventions still like a big ticket thing for developers to consider when kind of marketing and publicizing their games?
It's hard to say
Hmm.
how reality is gonna be permanently changed from that.
Hmm.
But right now, of course not. These
Hmm.
these events, they don't exist anymore. The virtual versions of them are not really worth it. Um, and a lot of them are actually free.
Hmm.
I've seen this. I don't know if GTC was free. I don't remember,
Hmm.
but I've participated in, like, I think, seven online B2B events, like to talk with publishers, it was in theory more effective. I had more meetings, but just the fact that we were not meeting in person, it really changed the thing. I feel like we were not connected.
Hmm.
So um, especially since traveling is expensive as
Yep.
as a starter indie developer. I think that's a good thing for small studio that are beginning, because this year has proven that it's possible to do without those shows.
Hmm.
But I don't know if that's going to be a permanent change.
Yeah.
But because the reality before that would have had a completely different take on it. Shows were an important part of my marketing plan.
Okay. Let's see. Another question came in. This is from Trayvon. He asked this earlier. Would you agree that the lack of reach is what kills a lot of indie sales?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Reach in any form is the problem, because you don't get you usually use the word visibility.
Hmm.
You as a small studio, you don't have that following. So any action that you take, you kind of need to piggyback on something else to get some visibility. You can just tweet out in the void all the time. Like, oh, if even if you tweet every day,
Hmm.
it's not gonna work. So you need to have um, to kind of gather influencers along the way, and to get that visibility on the stores on the day one. But that's the big change. You don't get a lot of visibility on those stores anymore, or I would say you don't get it for long. I was giving examples of games that released on Steam the same day that we did release Night Squad 2, and I saw a lot of games that just disappeared very quickly. They
Hmm.
they they got their few minutes of fame, and then they were stripped away from their visibility because it didn't perform enough. Um,
Hmm.
so that's sad, but yeah, it's consumers are exposed to so many games. So getting their attention is very hard. It's getting
Yep.
harder.
Oh yes. And again, like for somebody like myself, who I eat, sleep, drink, get indie games, I have seen that so many times that a game that I love, I'm like, people gotta check this out, and then I check launch day or the week after, and it has less than 50 sales. And like I know that no matter how much I love this game, no matter how great it is, it's still a commercial failure.
Oh, yeah. It's not gonna come back from that. Yeah.
Hmm. And that actually brings up, I think, a very interesting question I want to ask you about. We've spent the bulk of this cast talking about what to do before a game is released, the pre-release game, the trailer going, etc., etc. But what about launch day and beyond? How does marketing change, if any, once your game is out?
But yeah, well, it's an interesting question. Um, well, on launch day, it's gonna be different from post launch, because on launch day you're still in your initial marketing plan. You're
Hmm.
still part of it. You're at the most important part. So launch day is preparing launch day is for me is always a process of a few weeks of making that list. I use Trello to organize my work, and I have this one list called launch day. So that's going to be the list of all the things I said I would need to be doing on launch day. Posting on this place, posting in this group, etc., etc. Um, so it's game time. That day is the most important day. It's gonna be in the list of the most important day of your professional life, because it's hit or miss. It's gonna happen that day. It's gonna be dependent on how much work you put on that one day, because you need to kind of get the attention, all the attention that you've gathered through all of those months, you need these people to go and buy your game. It's no longer time for wish list. It's no
Mm-hmm.
longer time for follow. You need to purchase the game, because every purchase on day one has enormous effect on Steam, but also on Xbox and Switch. They all work pretty much on the same. If
Mm-hmm.
your game has to sell, if it's selling copies, uh, the platform is like that. Remember, they take 30% of each of your
Mm-hmm.
sales, so they like it and they want to keep it going. So if it doesn't appear to be selling that much, it goes away. So
Yep.
I cannot stress this enough. This is the day where you need to be not giving 110% of your energy. Give 300%. Do everything you can. It's that one day. Then post launch, so like few days after that, uh, I'd say that I would recommend to just keep pretty much the plan that you were doing before launch day. If you had a frequency of like a tweet a day or a few tweets per week, a video here and there to remind people of the features in the game. You can keep that going for like a week, 2 weeks, but then you have what's going to drive the rest of the marketing is production. So, are you going to add something to that game eventually? Really ask yourself this question. Because if the plan is like, okay, this game is a failure, we can see it right away, we're not going to do anything again, then marketing can do much for you, because you're driving people into a dead or dying game.
Mm-hmm.
You But if your plan is to keep adding content and keep on trying, well, marketing can keep trying as well. So prepare your next beat. In our case, that's what we're doing right now. We've released 1 month ago. We are releasing an update tomorrow. That's not a big update. We didn't have time to do a lot in 1 month, but it's still an update. And that's another, I'd say, another reason to talk to everyone again. Talk to everyone, all the streamers who've tried our game. Hey, there's an update. Tell our community, and it's a big news. Oh, you've liked our game, or you were once interested in our game. Oh, we released it, now we're updating it again. So now at that point, all the content update becomes, I'd say, the core of your communications. Like, we've released, now this is what's coming new next. Do you have ideas? You'll see it quite rapidly. Even if you have a small community,
Mm-hmm.
community management becomes really more interesting and engaging once you're launched, because people have your game in their hands. So they have opinions, they have questions, and we can feed off your marketing from that. Some player have you see frequent questions coming out. Well, answer these questions publicly through your channels, and this is going to give you content, and it's going to remind people that your game is out. So you keep using, I'd say, use your community, because these people, these players who are really into your game,
Mm-hmm.
um, they they can really help out to keep the flame going.
Yeah. And I want to pause for a quick second. It is 11 ET now, so we've been going for about 2 hours. I just want to see how you're doing in terms of energy and all
Uh,
that.
I'm still good. I'm still good.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for checking on me.
No problem.
I'm probably not gonna be doing more than like an half an hour.
Okay. I think half an hour should be, I think, a good, maybe a little bit before there, half an hour should be, I think, a good stop point as well. So, I get as another quick question regarding kind of the post release. I getting back to the game trailer, for instance. I
Yeah.
see a lot of developers that they'll use the same exact trailer for pre-release, as post-release, as specifically with a call to action. Like at the very end of the video, will say, coming in April 2021, and it could be May right now. Like, is it worth it to just update the trailer after post-release like that, or does it not really matter at that point?
It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not a big deal. Because
Mm-hmm.
at this point, and you gotta check your money again. You've made a trailer for announcing that the game will happen,
Mm-hmm.
and with probably an end slate saying to like 2022,
Mm-hmm.
and you've made one with a release date. You don't need to make an entirely new one um, with no release date at the end. What's usually done is just to change the end slate.
Okay.
Your marketing is your trailer is still good. It's just a little bit weird to have a trailer end with
Mm-hmm.
a release date when it's already out,
Yeah.
and they can
Mm-hmm.
clearly see, oh, it's outdated. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not a big deal.
Okay.
It's not a big deal. It's not a game break.
Okay. Let's see. Next question from Will. He asked, "Are demos better or worse for marketing? And what about early access as a marketing tool, like how New Blood uses it?"
Well, first let's talk about demos. Demos are very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say that demos are definitely good if you think your game is ready for it. Like, don't make an I'm not too sure about this demo. No, if you're about to make a demo, make a very good demo. It can be short. It's not a big deal. It's a demo. Remember, it's free. So it doesn't have to be a lot of content, but that content needs to be super polished. And demos are definitely good before release. Post release, it's a whole other question. It can be extremely good. It can kill your game.
Mm-hmm.
There are two possible avenues, and that will probably depend on what type of game you got. Is it a game that is endlessly replayable? Um, like it's, I don't know, it's a multiplayer game, or I don't know, or is it a story based game? I know that demos are pretty good for with those, because you can sell the ambience of the game, the storytelling, and you get a bit of it, and then it suddenly stops. And then if you've done your storytelling right, people want to see what's next, want to hear the rest of the story. So I guess for these games, it can be good. In our case, we've done that. And Night Squad 1 had the demo on Nintendo Switch. It didn't do super well. It was actually we removed it, and we saw a bit of an increase in sales. So because people didn't have that option, they look at the trailer and it's like, oh, do I want to buy it or not? Well, if you have a demo, there's a big chance that they're just not gonna buy it. They're gonna try the demo and maybe not end up purchasing it, not because it's not fun, because they just moved on. Remember? There's so many games coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So they try it. Oh, it was fun. Yeah, we had a good time. Then that's
Mm-hmm.
done. And then you kind of lost them.
Yeah.
So it can be dangerous. But before launch, it can be a really good tool to get people excited. You can use these at several events. You can use these with influencers, like, oh, go try my demo on stream.
Yeah.
Um, it can build up wish lists. It's yeah, it's a great tool. Especially since COVID and not having conventions and trade shows. The demos have been getting more popular. People expect demos now because that's usually what they get at a convention.
That's actually very. It's funny that you say, because I remember like 5, 6 years ago. Again, like people were like, "There are no need for demos. Like we don't need demos for games anymore." And I would also add on to that Steam now is doing a lot more like these like regular festivals. that
Yeah.
are another really great marketing. Like the summer festival alone, I think I played and wishlist about 90 games just from like that 2 week period.
Yeah, these events that they came up with in these COVID times were absolutely amazing. The idea was great. The ones that were made by Steam, so the summer festival,
Hmm.
whether it was this fall, the autumn we participated in the autumn one, they were very well made to make sure that there was not too many games participating. You only had the option to participate in one festival, so you
Hmm.
had to choose one you wanted to participate in. Yeah, these were super good. They were in some way because they were made by Steam, so they had all this amazing visibility from Steam. They were more effective than actual numbers I've seen at convention.
Hmm.
Real convention that you play, you pay for, you fly for, you like the results were even better. So these are amazing, but you only if unless they change the things, you only get one of those.
Yeah.
So you cannot participate in all of them. You have to choose. So now, of course, I would recommend choose the one that's closest to your launch. So if you're not sure when to launch, do not participate in those because you don't get a second chance.
Yeah. And I would also add, again, like the quality of the demo needs to be on point because we've seen, like you said, like demos can be a detractor to a game. Like a bad demo for a game is often, worse than no demo at all.
Absolutely, that's for sure. Don't make a demo if it. Well, if yeah, if you're not 100% sure that it's a good experience,
Hmm.
that people are gonna be left not
Hmm.
only wanting more, but like, that experience was great. I want more. Not
Yep.
frustratingly, just wow,
Yeah.
it was in itself fun, but I would like to see more of it. So we've worked a lot with demos because of those weird times we're living with, and we really put a lot of thoughts in what we put in those demos.
Yep. And as a quick time check, it is 11:10. So I'm going to issue official last call for questions from the chat, as we still have, I think, 3 or 4 more with a quick scan, and that may take us to 11:30. But we'll see, how things go. And again, there's nothing stopping us from doing a part two cast. Hopefully, it won't take us a year of planning, but it will be definitely great to have you back on if you're free, Lauren.
Yeah, was happy to help out and have a chat. I like that subject. I love talking about it, and the more you talk about it,
Hmm.
uh, the the the, the better you get.
Yeah. All right, let me do a quick scan here. All right, the next question comes from Shark, and he asks, "How does game purchasing work in relation to a free-to-play game on Steam? Is downloads considered the same in terms of platforms?"
Yeah. When you're talking about how Steam kind of gives priority and standing of those games in their algorithm, it's if you want to keep in the news, the new and trending section that usually is guided by sales, that's going to be download. That we got confirmation from someone at Steam that we actually asked that question. So these games they need to be downloaded like crazy on day one. But for down the road, I think it's a matter of revenues because those free to play games they must have some revenue at some point, and that's what's gonna make them a trend or disappear. So they have to make money. Steam wants to make money. So if you're making a game that's just free to play and has no monetization, it's just not gonna work on Steam. Like it's not gonna get into those special sections. We actually have one of those. Our game Night Squad 2 Trials, which is actually working as a demo,
Hmm.
is free and has no monetization. So we were not expecting to trend in those charts on Steam. It's just there to kind of act as a demo and a body pass for Night Squad 2. So yeah, I think it's how they sort those games.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Trayvon asked us earlier: are launch day sales the only way to do well with sales outside of getting lucky? Or let's see, or another way for him to ask the question: is it possible to have a successful sales campaign without relying on day one sales?
Um, there's another alternative. You can do very well on Steam. No, not if your launch day is bad. If your launch day is very bad, there's pretty much no coming back from it.
Mm,
Um, it's just not how Steam is built, and Steam wants to make money. So if your game doesn't make money on its biggest day, the algorithm of Steam just tosses it away. I say this is not going to make money, so I'm not going to push it, and I'll have games that are have more potential there. But if your launch was okay, but you want another opportunity to make a lot of sales, um, at the actual first like sale that you go through, like for example, all those summer sales, those
mhm,
winter sales, those big sale moment. Um, maybe your launch wasn't so great because instead of purchasing it, people wishlist.
mhm,
You will get a lot of wish lists on launch day because a lot of people will be discovering your game for the first time, so they're not really ready to kind of purchase. You know,
mhm,
they looked at the game, it looks really great, but I've just heard of it, so I'm gonna wish list it.
mm,
Then they're gonna be reminded of it at your first sale. So I would say that this second opportunity on Steam, it's a great opportunity.
mhm,
Those big sales, um, maybe go for a bit of a bigger discount. Maybe you're gonna go for a really big discount. That's gonna give you a lot of visibility and conversions on your wish list. Of course, if your game comes down to 70% and it's per sale and you had a lot of wish lists, well, you need to do the math. Is it worth it if all of your wish lists purchase the game at 70% off? Will you make just enough money? Um, so be careful not to discount too much. But it's definitely the more you discount, the more conversion you get on your wish list. So I would say that's the second way to make money. But yeah, the hard truth is you don't take your launch day lightly, especially on Steam, because there's no coming back from it.
yeah. And speaking about wish lists, that brings up another question that I was curious about. In terms of like the Steam algorithm, like Steam like recommending games, if a game does get like a high number of wish lists, but a lot of people don't buy it day one, does the algorithm still give it some benefit, or does it prioritize sales in terms of like recommendations in the search?
That I cannot say. The Steam algorithm is very mysterious. But I know from what I've heard of other people and people that giving talks, just like I'm talking right now, um, really once you're launched, Steam wants it to make money. So maybe the wish list still have an impact. Uh, of course they do because if you have more wish lists, when you have a sale or something, you're gonna do more money. You're gonna make more money. So it's probably still in the calculations and what Steam considers a criteria of importance, but it's probably going to be more sales oriented. Did this game make money? And that's going to be the main driver. Why we talk about wish list more is really it's the only criteria Steam has before launch. I don't even from the time we announced to the time we launched, I looked at our Steam wishlist every day,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much every day. I look at the curve. Oh, it went up a little bit, then down. I think I've looked at our wish list now since we released like 3 times in the last month, just because I don't kind of care anymore. It's not the metric that I'm looking for. I'm looking at the sales. I want to see if we're selling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it becomes way less important. You want people to purchase.
Okay. Let's see. So I think we have one, two. We have I think 3 questions left from chat, and I think this will be. I think I'll put a. This will be our hold for any more questions, and I'll probably like 1 or 2 ones after that, and then we'll wrap things up for our chat tonight.
Oh,
So Will asked. Um, he said, "Thanks for the demo answer." He also wanted to know what about marketing during early access. Like, are there any like unique things or anything else you have to be concerned about if your game's in early access versus a pre-release or post-release?
yeah. Well, early access is not a thing that I experienced with. So disclaimer: it's not something. It's something that we've done way back when early access was. Was it kind of new? I think it was kind of new when we did it with Night Squad One. We've never done that ever after. Um, so uh, that's something that we liked very much because from what I've heard, launching in early access is pretty much launching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As Steam is concerned, it's not going to give you um, as much launch visibility. It's not the same visibility you'll get on Steam, but in a marketing standpoint, you start selling copy. So you kind of shift the focus on building community to just selling, selling, selling because your game is available. So I would say that what changes in your marketing is that you're doing a lot more community management when you have an early access game because
Mm-hmm.
it's playable by
Yeah.
everyone. So that's a lot of work, but also that gives you a lot of content. Like I was saying, once your community is active, you have a lot of things to talk about because people have been playing, they've been reporting this, they've been making gifts, etc., etc. Um, so I guess this is how it changes your market because it's not simply push, push, push. It has already became a conversation. But the strength, I feel like I've been only thinking about the weaknesses of early access. The strength of early access is that you are creating a much more um, cemented community. These people have jumped on your game very early. They are usually very critical people.
Mm-hmm.
They're very critical of what they're playing, and they're going to be talking to you a lot. They're going to help you build this game into a game that has probably more marketing potential because you've been talking with your players. So they've been telling you what they like, what they don't like. You can use that information to kind of orient your game better and make it a game that maybe will get better reviews. Um, and maybe these people will spread the word more than community members who have not purchased the game. I would guess that someone, say, um, someone who has purchased your game in early access has a way more chances of telling their friends on
Mm-hmm.
launch day to go get the game because they've been playing this early access game for like a few months. They've loved it. They're still connected to it, and they have paid for it. So they're really more invested. So I guess they're they're going to be helping you out much more in the virality of your real launch.
Mm-hmm. And I would definitely clarify that, like you said, like early access is kind of like launch day for a game, and I think another trap a lot of novice developers fall into is thinking that early access is just a soft launch and really need to focus on hey, our game is just on it. But I think again, like another difference between successful and not so successful indie games is that opening bang. Hey, my game is out. Look at all the stuff we have with it. Versus, yeah, our game's out. No big deal, right? And when like the games that we've seen succeed on early access have been the ones that day one are fantastic. And like Shark and I, we've played, Monster Train, Slay the Spire. Trying to think of some big name examples, like even Darkest Dungeon. That when I picked those games up on the very first version of Early Access, I'm like, yeah, this game's amazing. I want to keep playing it. And I think again, it goes to a lot of what we've said tonight that you really always want to be putting your best foot forward. If you don't have a good trailer, don't release a trailer yet. If you don't have someone solid for gameplay, don't put your game on early access yet. Because like you said, you really only have one chance. And on the sad part is a lot of developers unfortunately blow that one chance.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a the big chance that people are. We go back to the. I think the first one we discussed. We first thing we discussed tonight is that people are nervous about marketing, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and their reflex to that is okay. Let's get right into it. Let's do it right now. So we have a game. There's this thing called early access. My build is on Steam. I can press this button and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be available and people are going to be able to play. They're going to give me feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it doesn't look great and you don't reach any audience, well, no one is going to tell you how good it is or how bad it is because it's just not going to interest anyone. And you've wasted that shot.
Yep. Ooh, yes. And again, there's a lot we could certainly unpack on that one. Um, Two more questions from Shark, and then I just have a few quick ones, and then we'll say goodnight. Let's see. Shark asks, how important is it to have a day one sale on Steam? So, for those people who don't know, a lot of games will have, like a 24 to 40 hour, 10% off, 15% off kind of price.
Well, it's extremely important. That's how Steam works. It's even integrated in your own page on Steamworks. Like your page, I think one of the first thing you see on the right on your dashboard is the expected launch date you're aiming for and the discount you're aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it's the general practice on Steam, and it has been for some time now, and it's even bleeding on other platforms. I was actually asking my contact at Nintendo, like it's the same on the Switch. It wasn't the case on the Wii U. It's not the case for AAA games for Nintendo. It's definitely not their strategy there. Um, um, and on Xbox, I actually asked the guys at Xbox, and he said, no, we don't do that on Xbox. Usually, games are full price on release. There's no discount. I wasn't sure, but I trusted them. And then when we on launch week, I look at all of those other games launching with a discount. I'm like, I should have not have trusted you guys. Because it's standard practice. And the reason why is that you want to give a reason for people to purchase it now, not
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, it looks great. I'm gonna purchase it this weekend or next week.
Mm-hmm.
No, you wanted them to purchase it now because
Day one.
that affects your day one sales and that starts the entire Steam machine. Your day
Mm-hmm.
one sales. I'm saying day one. Your hour one sales. Your uh, as soon as possible get some money in revenues. That's gonna start the Steam machine. So everything you can do to incite your community members uh, to purchase it, and then if they're really invested in your community, purchase it, play it, review it. That's gonna help you. These three steps are gonna help you because they need to purchase to play it. Then when they've played it, they need to play at least 5 minutes, I think, to get a review in, and then review it because that's gonna help your score. If you don't reach like if you don't reach 50 reviews, I know it might sound big for a small studio, but like it changes how Steam perceive your game entirely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the magic number. If you have 50 reviews, you are not a like they would classify this as a shovelware. You're not just one of the, I don't know, 20 games that come out every day
Yep.
that is not good. If you have 50 review, you are a decent game. You can have a rating that's like mostly positive, very positive, and mixed.
This is the last chat question. This is from Shark, and then like I said, I just have like one or two, and then we will sign off for tonight. But again, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a really great cast. Like I like to talk about game dev a lot, so like this is like right in my wheelhouse as well, because it is a major part of what it means to be a developer these days. You
Oh
need to
yeah, and
consider
more and
this.
more, I think,
Oh
more
yes.
and more.
All right. So the final question from Shark is: is there a way to participate in the Steam sale as a free-to-play game, like a sale on in-game items and search? Can that work?
I honestly, I honestly don't know the answer to that question, because I don't have a lot of experience with free to play games. And my only experience is very recent with our game Night Squad 2 Trials, and I've not tried to put it in some sort of summer sales or anything. So I don't know if you can kind of participate in those sales with a free to play game. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I feel like no, because your main, even if you have a free to play game, if you have a free to play game with no transactions, you can't. It's just not gonna make money. So Steam doesn't care about this product, so it's not gonna push it forward. If you wanna get visibility from here, it's gonna go through other channels, not visibility from Steam. You're not making money. If your game has in-game transactions, then it can make money. But those in-game transactions are not on sale unless, yeah, no, I would think that would be my instinct. I would think that as a free to play game, especially from an indie dev, I guess if you can have a deal with them as a big publisher, maybe it's different. But I think don't think you can participate in like a summer sale or a winter sale with a free to play.
So with that, again, like we could probably sit here and chat for like 2 to 3 more hours on this, but I know it's getting. Are you on ET time or are you Pacific? Okay.
Eastern time, so it's 11
Yeah.
30 here.
Yeah. So, like I said, I just have a few quick questions for you, like some of the things that just popped up in my head as we were talking, and then we will say goodnight. So, I guess going back to a question I asked earlier about like games that are outside the box or, very weird games like that. Does, like, there are certain genres these days that are very popular. First person shooters are kind of like what's in now, thanks to Battle Royale. While, something like the adventure genre, while it has a sizable fan base, it's also not, I think as big in the public eye. And we can maybe even argue that platformers are also in that very weird bubble. Like, there have been so many that they're kind
I
of like,
agree.
yeah, they're kind of like all like in this like giant, bowl or whatever. Like, my question for you is when you think about marketing, like, if you're dealing with a genre, like either a genre that is like very big, very popular, like a shooter, or a genre that's more niche, does your marketing plan change in any way with either one of those extremes?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. The battle isn't gonna be the same. When you're going for a very popular genre,
Mhm.
um, you want to kind of separate yourself from the pack. So you need to understand the pack uh, very well. Like you know that your consumer is gonna look at your game and compare it to other because there's so many of them. Other shooters that if you take the shooter for example, other shooters they've already played, and they want to see what's different in this one. Um, so I would say that focusing on what makes you unique is gonna be the key in your messaging. Um, because what's not unique about your game should be obvious in your content, like maybe your screenshots, your trailer. They'll see, oh, it plays like a shooter, but X, Y, Z. Um, so yeah, I think that would that would be the angle if you have something that's super popular and you're only in a genre that's crowded. But I think if you would have to go way back and make sure, are you sure that you want to go in that space if it's a space that's already super big and crowded? Because you could do some research, and um, I have a ton of resource on that subject that kind of analyze what games have been popular on Steam versus how many of those games were released, and you can kind of see a lot of games that are a genre that are making a lot of money, and not a lot of games are coming out in that space. Um, and that's definitely the answer is not shooters. A lot of shooters are being released, and not a ton of them are making. It's the shooters are on at that point in their life, I think. Way further than down the same road as this platformers and the puzzle games. There's like so many of them coming out, and most of them not making that much money. And so the other side, if you're making a game that's very niche, um, it's you're gonna have to build your a marketing plan that's very targeted, and you're probably gonna have to try out a few things. Like if you see that your game has like comparable game that like, okay, maybe our game is closer to this one. Reach out to press who have covered this or this game, or influencers. I really use influencers a lot in my work. Reach out to them, have a conversation. Would be interested in playing this game? Doesn't look like my thing. Maybe the answers, and like why, and it's gonna give you start to build some insights on to kind of understand, because if your game is super niche, maybe you have an idea of what your niche is. Maybe it's something completely different that you have not thought of. For example, your game could be a strategy game about I'm getting tired, so my ideas are really out there. A strategy game about dogs, like dogs fighting other dogs, and there's, I don't know, it's a strategy game. Your genre is strategy, but maybe your game is gonna resonate with dog owners, not with strategy game players, because dogs are not like serious enough. I don't know. I'm but it's just to give you an example. Maybe you don't know your niche as well, so you kind of need to explore more, and that's kind of here in your early marketing. You've just announced, or maybe before announcing even, you can go in secret and ask some people around, and better understand your the audience that you're kind of trying to get with your weird game.
Mhm.
um but again, are you sure you want to make a game that's so weird?
Mhm.
Ask yourself that question.
All
And
right.
also, I said some games, if you want to make a decision of what game you're making straight on how much money you want to make. The word is out there. You want to be doing a grand strategy game, like a 4X game. Those are super easy to do. So you need to do one. That's actually the kind of games that are the less amount of game is released,
Hmm.
and the median revenue is the highest.
Interesting.
So your biggest chance of making money is just to make a 4X game. That's so simple.
Yeah, of course it is.
Make
We
a
could
4X game.
we could make one in the next like 5 minutes. I'm sure we could just do
Yeah,
that right here.
it's simple. It's not like a mess of multiple mechanics coming together and
So,
game design documents and game design documents.
mhm.
Probably very simple.
Yeah, right now, a lot of indie developers are like, I think they're crying right now as we're saying this. They don't know why. They just started crying.
Yeah, but it's one of the conclusion of one talk that I listened to. The guy had a lot of statistics, and he said this is the way to go. There's um not a lot of games in that space, and there's definitely an audience eager to spend money, but he could just gotta make this kind of game. It's very complicated, but you are more chances of making money.
Mm-hmm. All right. So here's my final question, and normally I would ask if there's anything else we didn't cover, but I'm sure we've missed a whole lot. There's still so much to talk about. But the final thing that I wanted to ask you about very quickly, press pages or press kits. I remember again, like 5, 6 years ago, this was something that was like hammer home. Like every game site needs a press page. We all need press kits. Rami Ishmael has his free, I think, do press kits still available. Are they still relevant today?
I would say yes, but
Hmm.
they're not really a tool to get people.
Hmm.
They are a resource to drive people to when you end up getting some attention. Every time we send out a press release, there's a link to our press kit because it summarizes the information and gives assets directly. So you don't have I don't know press outlet Google. I have saw that Google your image because it's looks faster, so they take a first one from Google and they're like, oh, that's good enough. So it's a way for them to get the right information with the right assets to make
Hmm.
the best press content possible. So yeah, they're relevant, but it's not a tool to get attention. It's just a way to get the right results coming out from that.
All right. So, again, like I said, we could probably spend another few hours talking about this topic alone. This has been a fantastic conversation, but I'm feeling it. I still have a game stream to do after this. I know you're feeling it as well, so I think it is time to say goodnight. But
Yeah.
do you have, like, speaking about marketing, do you have any social media, PR, anything you would like to promote before I let you go?
Yeah, well, if you like to talk about games marketing and you want to take a peek at my day-to-day work, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Twitter Laurent Mercure. That's my name. I'm not very original in there. So you can follow my what the things that I'm doing. Um, and you can also follow Chainsaw Games. So our Twitter handle is actually Chainsaw Games and not Chainsawsome. It was actually not available. So you can
Oh,
follow us there. We of course these days we just talk about Night Squad 2, most game. You can check out Night Squad 2 as well if you're listening to this. You're curious about what was our most recent.
awesome. And do you have anything else you would like to, any other games or things you're working on you would like to tease, or is it still too early?
It's way too early. We're it's not a surprise. We will keep working on Night Squad 2 for at least a few months. We have a lot of ideas of things to add in the game. That's cool to be in that situation. So yeah, I keep on looking at our news. We'll be announcing cool new stuff for the game, and yeah, our next project is gonna be way down the road.
Awesome. So, Lauren, again, thank you so much for coming on. This has been very informative. And like I said, hopefully we can have you back on in a few weeks or a few months because, again, I'm sure people will have even more questions for us by then. And hopefully it won't take us a year to have another sit down conversation.
Hopefully. So thanks for having me, and being so understandable of my understanding of my time. And I really need to go to sleep now.
Yeah. All right. So, with that said, everyone, we are going to say goodnight here. I will be back in a few minutes for my game stream, but you'll find links and such to everything, like social media wise, down in the description down below for the recorded version. If you're new, check out our Discord and Patreon, and be sure to check out my books on game design, and they're all listed as well. And if you are a developer working on an upcoming game or just want to talk about game dev and game design, we are always looking for guests, so please reach out. With that said, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where he's in the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.
Goodbye.